So when the US Navy sends out an aircraft carrier, especially a huge one like the USS Nimitz, CVN-68, it's a big deal. It really shows off America's power and commitment. Usually, these moves are super planned and take their sweet time. But sometimes, when things get really crazy, a ship has to go full speed ahead to a hotspot. This story is all about why the USS Nimitz had to rush to the Eastern Mediterranean, a place that's really tense and seeing new security issues pop up. When a giant ship like this goes into emergency mode, it just highlights how serious the situation is and how determined the US is to protect its friends and interests. The Nimitz, being such an iconic warship, definitely gets everyone's attention when it's on the move like this. Crisis mode. Why they're rushing through tricky waters. Okay, so the Nimitz got the order to speed up because the Middle East suddenly got super dicey. Specifically, Iran and Israel were really going at it, firing missiles back and forth. This kind of direct fight between two big players in the region meant America had to show up, big and fast, to try and cool things down and protect its stuff. That's why the US Navy's oldest active aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, started heading west through the Singapore Strait on a Monday, pushing into the Indian Ocean. Going through the Strait of Malacca, which is a really narrow and important waterway connecting the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, is always tricky. But doing it at top speed, in an emergency, that really tells you how serious the mission is. People who watch ship movements saw the carrier hustling, which was a huge clue that something unusual was up. And a defense official later confirmed that the carrier was indeed headed for the Middle East. This super-fast deployment, happening smack in the middle of a tense situation, totally shows how flexible and quick naval ships have to be to keep things stable around the world. What made it even urgent? The Nimitz's rush through the Singapore Strait came just a few days after Israel reportedly hit Iran's nuclear sites, apparently trying to mess with their nuclear plans. That move was basically what kicked off all the missile exchanges we're seeing now.
Job swapping. How the Nimitz fits into the plan. Now, while this Nimitz deployment was definitely for a crisis, it also fit into plans that were already in motion. See, this carrier, based in Washington, was already set to head to U.S. Central Command, that's CENTCOM, anyway. Its main job was to take over for the USS Carl Vinson, which had been out there since mid-November and was almost done with its tour, meaning it needed to head home soon. Before this emergency order, the Nimitz had been hanging out in the South China Sea, according to a Navy tracking website. So you can see how flexible these carrier groups are, able to operate across huge distances before getting a new urgent assignment. When the Nimitz started its fast trip on Monday morning, the USS Carl Vinson was still busy in the Arabian Sea with its own group of ships, a cruiser and 3 destroyers. So the Nimitz arriving quickly is super important to keep that naval presence going in a region where having a carrier strike group nearby is often key for stopping trouble, gathering info, and, if needed, jumping into action. This planned handoff just shows that global Navy operations never stop, and it takes a ton of careful planning to keep ships out there without leaving any dangerous gaps. Hitting the gas, orders, and top speed. The order to speed up came through super secure channels right from the top brass. This order, which was highly classified, meant the whole ship had to immediately switch gears. All the normal stuff, how fast they travel, when they do maintenance, even when people sleep, instantly got put aside for special emergency procedures. It's not just about going faster, it means the whole ship, from the engine room running full blast to the control room being extra alert, has to totally readjust. When that order came in, it set off a chain reaction across every single part of the ship, showing just how interconnected carrier operations are. Every piece of this massive vessel, which usually just does its routine thing, had to suddenly go into emergency mode, proving how adaptable and well-trained everyone on board really is. Once they got the go faster order, the USS Nimitz started systematically speeding up to its absolute top sustainable speed. Down in engineering, the nuclear reactors, which were just chugging along normally, were told to pump out way more power. This meant careful tweaks to the reactor controls and the steam systems, making sure the ship's 4 giant propellers got all the power they needed. You can actually feel it when the ship speeds up. There's a definite increase in vibration and engine noise all through the hull. It's a tangible sign of the incredible power being unleashed. Because the ship is so huge, it takes a steady, determined effort to build up speed. Moving that much weight needs a ton of energy. Ship designers make these monster vessels able to cruise at high speeds for a long time because they know how vital it is to get military power anywhere in the world fast. Going full speed isn't just about pushing a lever, it's a complicated engineering feat. They have to constantly watch the engines, the oil systems, and the cooling to make sure everything stays perfect. If anything goes wrong, it could totally mess up the mission, which shows how incredibly important the engineering team is to keeping the carrier moving.
Life on board the Fast Lane Edition. When the ship goes into full speed mode, it completely changes how thousands of people live and work on the USS Nimitz. The increased vibrations and that constant engine hum become this never-ending background noise. People's sleep often gets messed up because of the constant noise and motion, leading to more fatigue all around. It's just less comfortable. Even simple things become harder. Moving around the ship, especially through those long hallways and up and down all those ladders, gets way tougher. You have to put in more effort and be extra careful because the ship is pitching, rolling, and swaying more wildly as it cuts through the water at high speeds. The chances of little accidents or falls go up, so everyone has to be extra aware. Even eating and relaxing, which are super important for morale, get adjusted. Meals might be simpler and fun activities get cut shorter, moved around so they can focus on getting ready for battle. People working at key spots like the Combat Information Center, CIC, the bridge where they steer the ship, and the engine control rooms are on super high alert for long periods, often working more hours than usual. They have to constantly stare at screens showing battle info, engine stats, and navigation details, demanding total focus. Maintenance on all the ship's important systems gets squeezed or changed. Routine checkups might be pushed off if something else is urgently needed for the mission. This ensures the most important systems are working perfectly during the fast trip and whatever comes next. The medical team also stays extra ready, prepared for any health issues or injuries come all the extra work or the stress of speeding through the ocean. This nonstop readiness across every department really shows how important the human side is in operating such a huge warship. The professionalism and resilience of the crew are absolutely critical for keeping everything running smoothly, even when things are super demanding during an emergency deployment. Tricky navigation and staying super alert. Steering a giant carrier at top speed is incredibly challenging, especially through tight spots like the Strait of Malacca and the Singapore Strait. The sheer momentum of the ship at high speeds makes it take a much wider turn and a lot longer to stop. This means the bridge crew has to be unbelievably precise and think way ahead. Normal navigation decisions, where you usually have a bit of wiggle room, become super critical, especially when going through crowded shipping lanes or narrow waterways. One tiny mistake could be a disaster. They have to constantly check water depths, maps of hazards, and ocean currents, often getting live updates from special sensors. The chance of running into other commercial ships, fishing boats, or even other Navy vessels goes up at high speeds, so they need to be on radar watch constantly, communicating proactively, and strictly following all the international rules for avoiding collisions. Weather also plays a huge part. Bad conditions like rough seas, strong winds, or poor visibility from fog or heavy rain can really mess with the ship's stability and how easily it can be steered. This increases the risk of damage or navigation errors. The bridge watch, made up of super experienced officers, quartermasters, and helmsmen, has to be incredibly aware of everything happening around them, predicting problems way in advance and making tiny steering corrections instantly. They rely heavily on advanced navigation systems like GPS, internal navigation units, and digital maps, which work alongside old-school methods like looking at the stars or using visual landmarks. Successfully speeding through a crisis situation like this is a huge testament to the Nimitz's bridge and navigation teams. Their training, professional smarts, and nonstop vigilance are what get the ship safely and quickly where it needs to go. Air wing ready. Getting fighters primed for action. The aircraft wing on board, that's the CVW, also ramps up its readiness big time during an emergency trip. While the carrier is going full throttle, all the air wing folks, Pilots, mechanics, weapons experts, and intelligence analysts are meticulously getting their planes ready for potential combat. The flight decks, usually busy with routine flights, might instead be used for super-fast maintenance, loading weapons, and pre-flight checks, all done with more urgency and tighter deadlines. The planes, like FA-18 Super Hornets, E-2C Hawkeyes for spotting things far away, and EA-18G Growlers for messing with enemy electronics, get thoroughly inspected, filled with fuel, and armed with the exact weapons they might need for missions in the Eastern Mediterranean. This means making sure they have air-to-air missiles ready for defense against enemy aircraft, and various air-to-ground bombs like JDAMs or laser-guided bombs to hit targets on land. Pilots dive into intensive mission planning, studying real-time intelligence updates, looking at possible threats like missile paths or enemy jet capabilities, and coming up with detailed backup plans for all sorts of situations. The focus shifts from just general training to very specific battle scenarios for the upcoming mission, demanding they learn complex info super fast. Maintenance crews work non-stop, often pulling extra long shifts to make sure every single plane is ready for action. They know that a reliable plane could be the most important thing in a high-stakes environment where even small failures can have huge consequences. The Air Wing's readiness isn't just about how many planes they have. It's about how well the whole team can fly complex missions under immense pressure, adapting quickly to new threats. The carrier and its air wing are totally linked. One's effectiveness depends entirely on the other's preparedness, making them a really powerful fighting unit. Let us know in the comments, and if you want more breakdowns like this, definitely hit like, subscribe, and that bell. Or for even more support, join the fleet on our channel page. Thanks for watching.